All right, so we are live. Hello, everyone. This is the Focus on Wellness in 2021 here at the Promise Resource Network. You have myself, Brianna, and we have Shar here today as well. We also were hoping to have with us one of the facilitators with a program that Promise Resource Network has worked closely with called the Alternatives to Suicide with the Wildflower Alliance. Out in Massachusetts, and they also do some stuff with the Hearing Voices Network. So since that shifted, or she may or may not be able to join us late, we're just going to kind of explore a little bit of our own stories, our own experiences with utilizing those platforms and the knowledge we've gained there, and sharing that with you all. So if you're here, we invite you to participate in the comments, and we'll, go from there. So, Shar, is there anything you'd like to start with, since you're here today as well?
I thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm super grateful to be here and to be joining you all. And in this conversation around, the 8 dimensions of wellness and trauma and hearing voices and recovery. So, yeah, I guess I would like to hear more about the 8 dimensions of wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've kind of gotten acquainted with that a lot over time. So it's important to just keep kind of checking in about those 8 components of that wheel that sort of keep us in alignment with our best selves, so that we can thrive. And those dimensions are, we've got the emotional piece, how we navigate our feelings and cope with them. We've got our environmental piece. Hi, Erin. So great to have you here. How the spaces around us are set up to help us feel nourished and connected. Our intellectual piece of how we continue to stimulate our minds and our creative abilities and find, connection in those ways. Physical, so all the things, what we put into our bodies, food-wise, our rest, how we move it and express it, our occupational wellness, that's really nice too, how we find fulfillment in the work that we're doing. And then we have the financial piece, which can be a struggle sometimes, but, having that financial security and knowing that we can meet our needs and not have to stress so much and be able to grow and thrive from there is really in a place of abundance is possible. And that's important too. Our social wellness, how we're connecting to other human beings, right? And again, that environment piece, that's really big, we need other people to navigate our experiences as well. And then the last foundational piece of that wellness wheel is our spiritual connection. And that looks different for a lot of people, but ultimately what that is how we find meaning in our lives, which is really, really important. That helps us define our purpose and channel our passion and really feel like, good at being here in the world, even with all the difficult stuff that exists there. So.
Yeah. And, I'm so grateful for our warm line, our peer support warm line. And I had the privilege this morning of speaking with someone who, called in saying that they really are in a dark place and are thinking more and more about completing suicide. And, really looking at what's underneath that and hearing this person talk about just the feelings of worthlessness, like, no meaning, no purpose, and what's another day, and being able to share my story from the peer support perspective and reflect on my experience with similar feelings, and really thinking about suicide for the most of my life, and then discovering that is common among us who have experienced trauma And then being able to apply this training called Alternatives to Suicide to, make those connections and become vulnerable in my own story. And hopefully share how I have found meaning and purpose in my life by supporting other folks through similar experiences. This wonderful thing we call peer support.
Yeah, I love that because, yeah, it's something like you said. I mean, it's wild because there's so many of us out there who felt that deep, isolated disconnection from ourselves and from the world. And it's such a difficult space to be in. And I'm so grateful, yeah, that we have the Worm Line and that, organizations like ours and these others exist in the amazing world of peer support, being able to share from our lived experience and to connect and discover something new about one another, that mutuality piece and the curiosity, is so important too. So I think like in the Alternatives to Suicide, they do the VC. Every group has their kind of thing, right? So, that's our, validating the person's experiences, staying curious and explorative in those big feelings and navigating, that together with them. And then, as Shar said, that vulnerability piece, being vulnerable in our own difficult experiences and, isolating times in our lives, and then connecting to the other seed, our community, because again, I think as someone who I have a very strong spiritual connection, and I'm so grateful now because I constantly lean into that space. And I appreciate the deep introspection and the inner work that needs to be done. But that's not all, right? We thrive and flourish when we enter a space of two or more, when we're connecting with other hearts. And that brings us that, greater sense of passion. And I don't know. I'm kind of thinking, and Erin said that she really enjoyed that class as well. I think it's such a phenomenal way to bring transparency around that and to honor that part of the journey that is hard. I know for me also, I struggled with suicidal feelings my entire life as well. I mean, I remember being a small, child and thinking that. And then each time in my life, and I had various experiences along the way, which is part of the piece of understanding how trauma impacts us, and adds to our inner dialogue gets kind of distorted because then we start hearing these, self-deprecating thoughts or thoughts that people who abused us or, bullied us or expectations from society just start weighing in on us so heavy that it gets to this point where you're like, it hurts so much that I just don't want to be here anymore. I can't see beyond this right now. And I think I feel so grateful in the journey to be here today in this space, to be here with you, Shar, so that we can continue to lift up our stories and hear your stories out there too, so that you see that you're not alone in that space, and that we can bring it back, right, to finding that purpose and meaning. Even I used to think that was impossible to not feel that crushed by that pain anymore. So
that whole trauma thing, I didn't know that's what it was. I just thought that, there was something inherently flawed about me, that, I was just unable to enjoy these different dimensions that you talked about. Like I didn't think I was able to get a job or keep a job. I was never going to be able to work again. That life for me, I was separate, apart from, and there was no meaning and purpose. And my emotions were flat and numb. And, and also at the same time, a paradox so big that, I wasn't able to, connect with my emotions, and my intellect and my mind was like blunted, or like I wasn't able to use my thinking part of my mind. People would say things like, you're so smart and yet you have no common sense. And then I learned more about this thing called trauma, and the question shifted for me about like what's wrong with me to like what happened to me. And that was really helpful because it took it outside of myself, and I was able to like look at it. Okay, look, here it is. And then it gave me some like distance and objectivity, and so I was able to really begin to develop a plan for healing and recovery. So it was really helpful for me to begin to look at all these things through the lens of trauma, and with the intentional peer support that we practice here at Promise Resource Network and on the Warm Line. It's so much about language, and I heard you say something about the way that I talk to myself, or the voices that I hear in my head. Those self-deprecating thoughts, I think, were your words. Like the language that I'm learning to use through peer support, intentional peer support, and being with other folks who have experienced similar things, and are on this road of recovery and healing with me, is a really big piece for me to choose a different way of communicating, gentler, softer, kinder way.
Yes, I hear, yeah, that piece that you're speaking to about when you finally had that sort of framework of understanding trauma and having a more trauma-informed approach that went a little bit deeper into your story, and the story beneath the story of like what happened is so important. And I know last week in our class with Eddie and Alyssa, that was sort of something everyone, as they were sharing, were saying that's sort of when the journey shifts, when you have that space to go deeper, to understand the context of what you're feeling and what has happened to you and how that lives within the body and the mind, is so, yeah, powerful. I love that you shared that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. It lives in it's in my entire human being, my body, my mind. It affects all 8 dimensions of wellness. And so when I was able to begin to look at the trauma, another thing, that's been helpful is ECPR. And so, that really has been instrumental for my healing journey, because it gave me the courage to like connect with my own being, to, connect with my heart. And then what you were talking about earlier, Brianna, about, the sacred space between the connection of any two people, my heart connected to your heart, through the warm line telephone, or even through this, internet connection, has been so wonderful in my healing journey, and helpful.
Yeah, likewise. I'm so grateful, and I'm excited for all of you out there that are part of our organization, that tune in or that are just, discovering us, to continue to see how we share our experiences with that, and a little bit more about what those foundations are too. And I think that the heart of all of them, like with emotional CPR, that connection, empowerment, revitalization, and sitting with people, expressing our vulnerability, and all of that, they all sort of have, in the intentional peer support and what we embody, and bring to, the world when we're connecting with others, is this really authentic, very heart-centered space, of not judging you, not trying to fix you, not trying to explain to you, all these different things, and letting you kind of just open up, even if it's hard at first, which it usually is, but through the power of seeing others and being, witnessed in a way that that space is there and that vulnerability is happening with you, it's like, okay, I'm noticing, yeah, I'm feeling a little bit guarded, or, but I feel better, like this weight's lifted off of me when we go into that space. And kind of also taking away, like, I know, like, sometimes I used to think in my journey that, which is really common, of feeling like you were just cursed. I felt like I was cursed. And I thought that there's no way, that this ever will go away, even with all of these practices and things. But then you get to this place of like incredible resilient, you honor your resiliency through the journey to get through all of that, to keep showing up, and the more that we kind of blossom out with that, the more that all these different parts of, like you said, our, wellness dimensions are impacted as well. We start to begin to realize our full potential and enter into a space of growth, be able to use our pain and our story to create something better. Like, that is so huge, and it's looked like a lot of different things for me. I'm so happy to be a part of the recovery world and the peer movement and all of that. That's only given me more like passion and hope for the world and for all of us. I'm also grateful for many various spaces with human beings who just naturally embodied that, who, through, I'm an artist, and, through, music or connecting in these alternative places, there were so many of us that were like, you're the oddball, you're the weirdo, you're the black sheep, but everybody would just come together, and just, it was like, we're all here. And that, seeing that continue to blossom out and have all these other frameworks, has been powerful. Yeah. And as an activist, I think that this is so, just important to have more trauma-informed and culturally competent spaces.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about Stephanie Covington, and we hear so much about the downward spiral, but I just have integrated the upward spiral, that healing and resiliency from trauma. And just like we can get caught in that downward thing, we can very much get caught in that upward thing, and it is just so beautiful and wonderful to be a part of that. And yeah, and I was also thinking about, the emotional CPR, that, the connection and empowerment and revitalization. So we've talked a little bit about the connection, and then, the empowerment piece, that is so wonderful to be able to see how in my own life, my story changed from being a victim to then being empowered to be like, okay, I fully accept. I cannot do anything to change what has happened. I cannot change the past. I can't, I'm just going to accept this. And then, I'm going to choose how to respond. I had done so much reacting my whole life. And so being empowered to like choose how to respond, and, that's a big part of how peer support has been so helpful for me, is, I've been empowered to choose. And, the medical model is what we call it, the medical model, where, we go to someone and we expect them to give us a pill or tell us what to do, just somebody tell me what to do. And, some of my frustration has been that, in peer support, no one's going to tell me. They're going to ask me questions and listen to me, and then repeat back to me some of the things I've said, so I can like hear the words I said coming from your mouth, and then I'm like, oh yeah, and so just being empowered to make choices on my own, and having someone to really connect with me and my heart around that, with empathy and kindness and gentleness, to help me to see my strengths and the things that I'm good at, and the possibilities that still lie before me. Even though the past is the past, and I can't change any of those things that have happened, things that happened to me, and things also that I have done. I can't change any of those things, but I can choose to be empowered, to write my own story. That song from Natasha, what is it, Bennington or Benefield? I'm like, yeah, unwritten. The story is still unwritten, and having choices before me has been an important part of peer support for me. And I think it's an important part of what we do on the Warm Line.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you kind of touched on that, and like you really can see it and feel it in yourself and with another person when they sort of, reach that space of like, whoa, like yeah, like that power of choice, I think so much of, that can be scary at first because we haven't had a lot of places that have empowered us to be able to explain the context and go deeper within that. So whenever we have a chance to share our story, but also I love that you also shared that song. I was thinking about many years ago, it was like on my Facebook or something, for my occupation, I put rewriting my own story. And that was like it, because I knew, I was like, I want to be able to move to a space of meaning and empowerment, even if I don't know what that looks like right now, even if that seems really far away, even if it's really scary. I want that, and to keep putting in energy and effort into that, and then having other people, like you said, be in a space with you, like with these phenomenal programs and stuff that allow you to navigate it in your own way, and it's unique for everyone. And I think a big part of my journey has also been, which I love that all of this stuff embodies, is entering a space of being non-judgmental and self-compassionate, noticing that I'm going to have difficult experiences and emotions, and the things that have happened to me are challenging, but instead of letting myself run with that narrative before of like, see, you're terrible, see, you could never do this, see, you need to die, there's no point in you living, you're never going to get beyond this, you're always going to be, without a stable home, without a good job, you're just going to have to keep putting in all this stuff, no one's ever going to see you, and just shifting it to this space of just noticing and going deeper within it, and thinking, well, what if actually I was able to self-actualize and allow myself to say, I deserve that, despite going through all of that. Every human being deserves dignity and the right to a meaningful life, so.
Yeah, it sounds like you're talking about the R in the ECPR. Yeah.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, that revitalization piece, when we begin to open up in the world again and to see, those possibilities, we're feeling empowered, and we're now in this space of being able to be rejuvenated and transformed by what's happened to us. That's, yeah, pretty amazing. And then what's incredible, right, is that when we do that together, one-on-one, and then spreading that out in our communities, it just grows and grows and grows. Like in ECPR, there's me CPR, we CPR, and all these different, the community CPR, ECPR. It just continues manifesting, in this beautiful way that, it shifts for everybody. And that gives me such incredible hope.
Yeah. And, I've done a wellness recovery action planning, a good part of my recovery. And, the hope is the foundation. It's the key principle. It's the number one key principle that everything starts with, is that hope. And, I'm here today really, that's my mission. That's my purpose. That's what gives meaning to my life is, being able to share that I've been through some things too. And, this morning I was talking with someone and, he was really contemplating. He said that the darkness is growing. It's rooted in feelings of worthlessness. And, it comes after being incarcerated and having so many challenges related to, re-entering society. And so I was really grateful to be able to, connect around those experiences that I have also had. The feelings of worthlessness, the increasing darkness, the thoughts of suicide becoming, a greater and greater probability, and like more, more of a solution to not only, my own hurting, but what I perceived as, my hurting other people around me just by continuing to take air. And, the beauty that I've just found through being able to share those experiences with other people. And, the setting that I'm assigned to these days is this, the warm line. And, being able to say, please, we're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You never have to be alone because we're here and we care. And, you're actually helping us when you call because, it gives us an opportunity to share that, that what's in our heart. So connecting with another person heart to heart is, where I've found life. And I'm grateful to say that, for me, that was in the state prison. And so, finding community among the women that, I lived with there. And, the trauma had taught me that, can't trust women. Can't be with other women. You can't trust them. Like I was separate from other women. And when I was in prison, like there was no other choice. But, we were together all the time. And just really figuring out ways to connect with other women and heart to heart has been such a big part of my healing journey.
Yeah, I love that you shared that. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say, and then being able to share that with another human through the warm line that is also, in a similar space.
Yeah. Yeah, the mutuality piece is really big. I'm always like, remind people how just amazing it is that to pick up the phone and to be able to call a number with someone you've never spoken with before and say, like, I'm having a hard time. And to still, to me, just by doing that, it continues to empower me too, of like, wow, the courage that it takes and the fact that you're trying, and it, reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? And like you said, why you're doing what you're doing and why we keep showing up for this. And I love all the different like healing transformations you're talking about too, that sort of happen along the way, like, being with other women and stuff. That's a very common thing as well, where it's like, you can't trust one another, and just sort of breaking those barriers and bringing it back to just human being to human being, heart to heart, and I am so grateful for all the amazing diverse friendships I have, and especially with other women that are out there. So that's beautiful. And I couldn't imagine, being incarcerated, when I think about that, I've never had to experience a literal incarceration. I've certainly felt incarcerated by many different things in my life, but you sort of are just, it seems like, you know, stripped down, your humanity is, you know, it seems like it's dissolved, like you're put into these cells, you know, and there's all this like disconnection from other people in this, I don't know. Could you speak more to like, what were some of the most like challenging parts, and how did you feel like you were able to stay connected? What was keeping you going to get out of there, and then what were the harder times like in that space? Because yeah, that's a really difficult place.
Yeah, I heard you use the word mutuality, and you know, what that word means to me is, you know, the essence of peer support. It was an important part of the conversation that I was referring to earlier. I had with this person who called the warm line. That mutuality is this right here. You know, that, you know, the person said, "Oh, I don't want to get in trouble," and I was like, "There's no possible way to get in trouble, because we're on the same level. We're in a peer-to-peer relationship. Like, there's no way to possibly get in trouble. I mean, it's like, we're just opening up to be our authentic selves. Like, nobody's going to judge you, or, you know, there's nobody to get in trouble because there's no authority." And so, you know, that was completely challenged in the experience of prison. And, you know, the whole prison experience is an additional trauma. And so, you know, it just, there were like these two different stories both at the same time. Again, going back to, you know, the paradoxes that we encounter as we experience recovery. It's like two different stories. Is like there was this self-fulfilling prophecy that I was in prison because, see, I knew it all along, confirms all the voices. I am a bad person. I don't deserve anything, right? And so it was like there was no choice in that whatsoever. Like, there were these folks that, you know, they strip the humanity from you. They take your clothes, they take your choices, they yell and scream at you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know what I mean? They take all the things that provide comfort to us. You know, it's just stripped of all those, you know, things that give us our individual character, and instead what we get is a number. So, you know, and it's a number that's imprinted on every person who's been through the process. Like, I have a number in Florida, I have a number in North Carolina, and even though it's been decades, like, that number is, it's like my social security number, or, you know what I mean? It's like who I am. And then on the other side of it is this other story that I'm grateful that you asked me about, and how I found, you know, the strength and the willingness and the hope when I was in that dark place. And, you know, by connecting, by choosing to step outside of my comfort zone and make connections, even though it was really scary, it was very uncomfortable. And, you know, it was opposite of everything that, like I say, this chatter in my head was telling me to do. You know, I dared to press in anyway. And then there were also, you know, volunteers that came in, they came over to me to, you know, to help me see myself in a different way. They reflected the things that are right with me, instead of, you know, confirming all the things that were wrong with me. Yeah, so I found out that I heal in circles. And previous to prison, my brain was set up on a paradigm of ladders, you know, one on top of another. And the whole prison experience helped me to realize that my shift. It's so touching just to reflect on it honestly about that. You know, it shifted my paradigm from hierarchy to circles, and realizing that we are all connected. Yeah, in this big circle. So thanks for the privilege to share about that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That was just really beautiful. And it sounds like even though it was really hard, that it sort of, yeah, reconnected you to a way of life that, you know, has since propelled you forward, you know, and here you are, you know, still creating circles of your own out in the world, you know, with the, you know, the wellness class and the warm line. And I think it's so just amazing that you can, I'm constantly in awe of the human beings, like, resiliency, you know, our spirit's resiliency to endure. And I could only imagine how, yeah, that shifting back into a space outside of that, and like when you were sharing like that number staying with you like a social security number, I hadn't like thought about that, but I was just kind of like feeling that and seeing, you know, that sort of like, yeah, following you. And I love too how you know, were able to share that, you know, even though it was alienating and at first it seems like, you know, it, you know, in those kind of traumas, you want to confirm all those things that are the see, you deserve this, you to be here. But yeah, that you found incredible strength out of that. And I'm just so honored. So yeah, thank you for sharing that piece and continuing to embody and show us how we can show up in the world and in ways that heal. And feeling is healing is a saying that they
Oh.
I've heard in a few circles, and circles have certainly been really impactful for me as well in my journey. You know, it was throughout all the years and years of just from the time I was a kid, you know, going through various child abuse, you know, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, constantly moving, my father being incarcerated over and over, him going, you know, being institutionalized, trying lots of different things, living in battered women's shelters with my mother, all sorts of stuff. And then my journey really shifted around the time in my early 20s where I was in an abusive relationship myself again, and the person was trying to essentially kill me, and we were in a fight, and I broke free, and that wasn't unusual, right? And in that sort of toxic relationship, but I broke free, and I ran to my car, and I looked in the mirror with my bloodied nose, and I looked in that rearview mirror, and I said, this is not your life. You're not going to repeat the journey that you grew up in. You know, something's going to shift. And I didn't know how or what that looked like at the time. And I was still leaning into a lot of, you know, I was homeless in the way of, I've never lived on the street, but I have lived on many people's couches, like secondary homelessness. And many people let me do that, and I'm so grateful. But yeah, through that space of being held by others that weren't judging me, and reminding me that were telling me, wow, like, you know, I think it's amazing that you're still here and you're pursuing all these things, and you're saying that you're going to somehow figure out how to bring this, you know, life that you deserve into fruition. And it was a long, arduous road, but through, for me, a lot of things that I learned through trauma, as well as, again, how we store it in our bodies. So learning how to reconnect with my body in a way that felt safe, to be able to move it. That's why I think, like, with the mindfulness communities also embody a lot of these practices of a space of curiosity, you know, in that non-judgmental space, and being able to connect, like you were saying, in circle and community with other people that are just working through their own stuff. And like in yoga, you know, it's like eyes on your own mat, you know, like you're not trying to be this person, you're trying to be your authentic self. Your body and your experiences look different, you know, and how are you're here for you, you know, and that really continued to help me sort of open up more. And And then, yeah, I went to a space in upstate New York called the Omega Institute and lived in a tent for 6 months in the forest. But in trade for that, I was able to work with children and have access to this. And then that just sort of grew and grew to where I am today. And I'm just so grateful that, yeah, we're here. And I'm grateful for all of you that are out there with us. And I hope that our classes and our stories are able to continue to give you some sort of, belief in yourself and affirmation, and to help you see that you can get connected, and all those different dimensions of wellness are absolutely possible, right? I'm sure, Shar, you can speak to, like you said, I didn't think I'd ever be able to be here. I didn't think I could have this kind of stability or confidence in myself, right?
No. Yeah, 100%. And I just was reflecting as I was listening to you about the whole mindfulness piece and learning how to just notice things without all that judgment, and how just the love, volunteers who came in and actually taught me how to be still, and, how to just be still and not talk, and the mindfulness piece of just noticing and being reconnected to my body, and then being able to reconnect or find a connection with a higher power of my choosing, through the 12 steps, the connecting with a power that, as I understand this higher power, and being able to find this unconditional love that has been supporting me through, the entire journey. Then, it shifted from having these anger and resentment toward this, if there is a higher power, then you suck at your job, to realizing that, oh yeah, oh, I see, I was in that hard place, and then this person came along, and oh, that's love. That was my higher power. And that love and higher power connection helped me to see my story differently. So instead of when someone asked me to tell them my story, what it used to be like is, oh, all these horrible things have happened to me, this and then that, and then this, and I was consumed, obsessed with, living in the pain and the hurt and the darkness and the traumas, to, having these connections with circles and higher power, being unconditional love, and being able to notice things without judgment, which changed the language in my own head, all these voices, right? Like, to being able to retell my story and say, hey, you know what? I am a person in long-term sustained recovery. And what that means to me is I've been through a whole bunch of stuff. And I've come out the other side as a messenger of hope that now has this wonderful purpose. My life has meaning today. And it is to be able to love and support other human beings. Being able to transition, from that piece, that, dimension of wellness, like you were talking about, from the body, connecting with my body, connecting with, this spiritual dimension with this unconditional love, and then, connecting to the social dimension. Like, all these things have come together so that, today it's like my vocation, it's my spiritual calling, it's, it's what I think about. So when I study on, like, how do I get more connected to this unconditional love that now I have found as supporting all of us in this circle of life, to, what did you say earlier, to live my best life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing it. Yeah, it's really phenomenal. And I was thinking as you were sharing stuff too, like with ECPR, a lot of it is sometimes sitting in silence with people. And a big part of it is I will honor my first feelings first, so just having that awareness of what arises, within us, so that we can you know, be in that space with people. And then I was thinking too, as you were talking, just seeing all these different transformations and yeah, sort of like this rebirth. And I was thinking about like, you know, even with like suicide, and I think a video I watched of Caroline's from the Alternative to Suicide, a documentary she was in, talking about sometimes, you know, having a different approach with it. Maybe it means that things around me might be metaphorically needing to die, to be let go of.
Yeah.
And it's not
Yeah.
that I necessarily need to leave
Yeah.
this because I'm so in that space, right?
Mm.
It's that, and a lot of that to shift into our wellness. I'm sure that, you know, what you realized, and definitely what I realized too, and all of us out here, is that, you know, there are a lot of things that we have to let go of to allow ourselves to be. We have to let go of that attachment to our story to honor it, but let go of the part that says you are only that, and realize, you know, all of your other potential. Let go of relationships and spaces that harm you, or, you know, don't want to see you reach your highest potential, and invite in greater social connections, like all the beautiful connections you've shared, and as I was sharing, of like being in communities and with other individuals who just, you know, are just in it with you. We're just being together. And when you're happy and when you're thriving, I'm thriving too, you know? And when you're hurting, I can feel that hurt too, but I'm gonna hold it with you. There's nothing, you know, wrong with that. And then, yeah, I was just seeing, my mind works in like patterns and visions and stuff too. So it was just all these flowers and magical things that were just blossoming as you were talking about, like that, the space that you've got to today. And thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, I appreciate this time we've shared too. And I hope that, you know, in the end that we could maybe inspire hope in another person, that, you know, trauma is not the end of the story. I have this semicolon project on my arm, right? Like, but I have mine with a little heart in it. Oop, there we go.
I
Yeah,
love
because
it.
you know, the love, the love has been such an important part of my story. But, you know, like I said, that thinking about suicide, and it was a really big part of most of my life, and, you know, finding the love and just realizing that, you know, it's not the end of the story. It's just kind of like a pause, and, you know, and then being able to make choices, and, you know, and find this beautiful, wonderful, what you say, flowers and rainbows, and you know,
Basically.
yeah, yeah, wonderful, you know, magical story, you know. I'm really grateful to be here today, Brianna, and I thank you for this space that you've created for us to kind of explore these things together. And I pray it'll be hopeful for someone else.
Hi, Holly. I think it will be. It's been helpful for me to share in this space with you. And, you know, I was thinking too, I had a quote: inner peace doesn't come from understanding, but trusting. And trusting in our lives is such a hard process. But yeah, but we are deserving of goodness. We're deserving of an empowering life. We're deserving to feel good and supported, and just not, you know, seen as anything less for just being human. And as long as we're showing up in a space of care and compassion and respect for ourselves and one another, that will continue to grow and grow and grow, as it does, and as we do in this work every day. So yeah, it's and you know, I was, you know, this class, right, it kind of looked a little different, to be transparent about, you know, how I thought it was going to be. So I had a little anxiety come up of like, oh gosh, I don't have a plan B. And noticing, you know, my palms getting a little sweaty and my heart racing, and like, you know, trying to witness, you know, my thoughts of coming up of, you know, oh, you're gonna mess it up, you're gonna mess it up, because that was just like a theme of my life for so long. You're a mess up, you can't do it right, you know, and just seeing, even in something as small as this, right? It's just a class at the end of the day, like, right? We're connecting, we're doing what we're supposed to, we've shared amazing stuff. But it's just, all of this work is so needed in the world, because it just reminds us that it is okay, you know, and that it's going to be all right. And then through, you know, connecting with one another, it just feels better. Wow. Like, as I even said that, I don't know, it's, you know, naming that, even just let like something go from me. It was like a shedding. And yeah, so I hope that
Yeah.
all of it can transform our lives. What were you going to say?
It's okay to not be okay.
Yes, that's one of my favorite sayings. It's like, it's okay to not be okay. It is, you know.
Demi
So.
Lovato has a song named that.
I love that. I don't know that
Yeah.
song. I'll have to look it up. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Much love to you. Much love to everybody. I hope you'll call the warm line and see us back here on next Wednesday at 2:30.
Absolutely. And just as a reminder, our next week is our last class that'll be at 2:30. And then from April going forward, the wellness, focus on wellness in 2021 will be moved to the 1 o'clock slot. But we will keep you posted. And you know, we're excited to continue to have people from our network and any of you out there and other organizations join in on these conversations of how we navigate our wellness, and move from a space of being just traumatized to a space of revitalization and having, you know, deeper meaning and healing in our lives. Because together, that's how we do it. And we've got a lot of great resources. So, and I hear you, Holly. I see you said allowing oneself to become overwhelmed in expectations that rob the authenticity can be a shock to the system. Absolutely. My last call right before I jumped in on here was similar to what they were saying, of like, you know, I just, despite everything, I don't want to be inauthentic. I don't want to be inauthentic. So I don't think of how I said that there, but you know, they're like, I'm just, yeah, being me, and you're not going to please everybody, you know? So, but we deserve, that care. So thank you all for being here. We do hope you'll continue to come back, and utilize all of the great classes at our organization. Check the calendar. Wednesdays is like double wellness, because I know Erin and some others lead a class there, and we've just got so much in our wonderful warm line that we're so grateful to be a part of. So thank you. Until next time.
Yeah.
We will see you soon, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Do something kind today.
Yes.